What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's live stream, today's Traders Mind Chat live show. We've got some very important stuff to talk about today, namely treating your trading fears as a friend. I'm going to share my screen over here. Bear with me just a moment while I get this fired up over here. Running a moment or two behind schedule. If you guys are here and you're joining me live, thank you so much for being here. Let me know in the chat where you are joining us live from. Always interested to hear about that. We're streaming live to so many different places here. Got the first comment here. Good afternoon, sir. Mark Cass. Welcome to the live stream, Mark. All right. So today we're going to be talking about top trading fears. And oh yeah, by the way, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead, click the like and subscribe button. If you click the like button, that's going to help blast this out to a lot more people, so that way a lot more people could see it. This is really a very important topic that we're talking about here. Trading fears, fear of missing out, in particular, that's a huge one. But given where the market is right now and how far the market has run, in fact, well, why don't I switch back over here and share some of the moves that the major indices have had. It's been quite the rally over the past couple of weeks here, right? Back here on October 6th, that's when we were talking about getting long, and most people that I know, that I speak to in my circles, were bearish. And it's really since then that the market has made this tremendous climb into new highs, and now it's run about 6%, and you are about 3.5, almost 4% above the 50-day moving average. That's significant. And the fear of missing out is a big one that a lot of people are beginning to talk about and experience. And it's troublesome if you are a little bit late to the game, if you were a little bit of a slower starter to get in, or maybe you're somebody that is new to trading, and you are just starting out, and you're wondering to yourself, man, you know what? I'd like to get in on this market, and it's trading at highs, and I'm sitting in a classroom, maybe talking to some of my peers, and it's like, yeah, you know what? I should buy something, right? Well, some it, there's a right time and a wrong time to be buying, right? So the right time, or maybe the better way to say it is that, well, we always want to be managing our risk. Like, risk management is going to be number one. So, well, whenever we enter a trade, and I'm getting a little bit off topic here already, but whenever we enter a trade, the idea that we want to ask ourselves is, where are we going to get out of this thing if it moves sideways? Meaning, like, if it starts to move against us, where are we going to pull the ripcord and call it quits? So as the market moves higher, that tends to be the question that enters the mind, and uh, that fear of missing out tends to get higher. So anyway, time to get back on track. Back to the main topic about trading fears. Now, well, what do you think are some of the top trading fears? We've already mentioned one of them, right? Well, we already mentioned the fear of missing out. Right? Type into the chat. Let me know. Well, what are some other trading fears that you could think of? Well, what are some of the fears that maybe you've encountered personally? If you're newer and you haven't gotten into too much of it yet, well, what are some of the things that you've heard about, or maybe some of the fears that you have entering into the market as a new trader? Go ahead, type it into the chat. Well, let's see what you guys got. Uh, Losing money. Losing money is a big one, right? Fear of losing money. Oh, well, what's another fear that, what's another big trading fear? Uh, how about a fear of being wrong? Fear of being wrong. Mark says, used to struggle with fear during normal pullbacks. Fear during normal. And we'll put normal in quotation marks, normal pullbacks, right? That's a good one. We'll dig into this one. Thank you for that, Mark. All right. So now, uh, question that I get all the time is how to deal well with fear. Right. Well, and the typical response that people have when it comes to dealing with fear, and I know this from my own personal experience of having done it this way in the past, and it just never worked out too well, is dealing with fear by trying to stuff it down, basically, but like telling it to shut up, go in the corner, and or kicking it, trying to kick it out the door, right? Like almost where you have this adversarial relationship with fear, where it's an enemy, where it's a foe, where you just not going to talk to it at all. That maybe that works in the short term, right? Yeah, maybe that works on a day, right? Like where you're just trying to get through something and you're hyper focused on execution, right? Like you're in a trade, you have some, yeah, maybe you have your trading plan and your trading plan is about to go out the window because of some kind of fear. Maybe telling that fear to, hey, go sit outside, and while you're executing your plan, maybe it works in that scenario. However, it's a short-term fix. Short-term fix. What we need to be doing is more of this. Treating your fears as your friends. Now that might sound a little bit strange, right? Like we're trying to manage fear or get rid of fear. Why would we want to treat fear as a friend? Well, if you uh, approach fear as a friend, if you're approaching it instead of like having this adversarial relationship with it, then it kind of opens you up a little bit, right? Like so, it, the fear that you have is internal. The fear that we all have, we all experience fear internally, right? Like it's not something that we experience externally. Like it's something that's in our mind. We're afraid of something because, well, for any number of reasons, right? And they could be unique to us. That could be something that is feared by a group. A very simple example, right? Like, let's say you're to go walk across the street, right? Some people might be deathly afraid of that. Some people might not be afraid of crossing the street at all. Right, like if you are an adult and you have your abilities, right? Like you have your sight, you have your hearing, you're of sound mind. You won't be afraid of crossing the street. Whereas a child that's told that, hey, don't cross the street without an adult, might be afraid to cross the street at all, whether there's cars coming or not. Now, if I told you, you know what? I'll give you $1,000,000 to cross the street, you'd probably jump at that opportunity. But what if I told you, well, we've got to blindfold you, and it's not just going to be across the street, it's going to be cross a busy highway during the middle of rush hour. Would you still do it? No. Why? Fear is telling you not to. So fear is acting as your friend. So what we want to try to do then is to figure out, well, how is this fear? How is this friend? How is this part of us trying to help us? Right? So we want to try to open up. We want to try to learn from our friends, right? We want to try to learn from our fear. So we want to learn from fear, right? So how do we learn from fear? We start with why. Start with why. Start by asking that fear. Start by asking uh Mark, if you're still here with us, uh, start well with why you would have fear during normal pullbacks. I would even go a step further and try to come up with a definition for normal. Right. What's normal? Well, what's normal to you or in your mind? Do you have a clear definition of what normal is or what versus abnormal? It's something that I actually struggled with for a long time. Um, and you know what? I'll give you the part of the solution that I came up with to for what normal is, right? And then we'll get back on track with other fears. So with uh, normal versus abnormal, I actually go through each trading day and I come up with 15 different scenarios for what can happen in each trade. So there's 5 different things that a trade could do, and then it could either close at the top, in the middle of its range, or at the bottom of its range. So trades can either rocket up, they could drift up, they can move sideways, they could drift down, or they can tank. And in each one of those scenarios, they could either close at the top of the range, at the bottom of the range, or somewhere in the middle of the range. So, well, what I'll do then is I'll think through each one of those scenarios per trade. And depending on where the trade is at, I'll have a different answer for how I'll respond. In that scenario, preparation it ended up being the cure for me for that type of fear. So what we want to do then is again come back over to treating fear as friends instead of just telling them to shut up, be quiet, sit in the corner. Is to start with that question why. So if you are uh, if there's a fear of missing out, let's say, start with why. Why are you afraid of missing out? Are you underinvested? Um, is there did you hear something from somebody in on Twitter or StockTwits or whatever social media platform you happen to be on that this is a great stock or this is a great crypto or a great whatever and you're about to miss out and you're seeing it go up and up and up and it's leaving without you, or is that the reason why? um well, what are some of the reasons why you are feeling fearful? Like sit through. Don't just like please type it into the chat if you're having any of those kind of fears. But aside from this, because the bigger takeaway isn't for you to type into the comments and that kind of stuff. Like we could work through some stuff here right now, but the bigger idea is for you to have a model of how are you going to uh, deal with fear, manage fear, and ultimately come to some kind of a resolution for these fears. So really, your first step is going to be this here. Start with why, right? And try to go a few layers deep. Maybe you go 3 layers deep, 4 layers deep, right? So If you go to, let's say the fear of missing out, right? Or better yet, let's use Marx, right? Like so, used to struggle with fear during normal pullbacks. Okay, so why? Why is there a fear of normal pullbacks? Um, Maybe part of it is that we don't have a clear definition of what normal is. Maybe we do. Um, Maybe part of the fear is giving back profits, right? So when we start to ask, right, like so to come back over to this here fear during normal pullbacks. Need to learn how to copy and paste with this pen. But, anyway, so let's say that we're using this as the example, right? We're using Mark, as the example. Hope that you don't mind us, picking on you, Mark, but this is really good. So fear of normal pullbacks, right? So we're gonna ask, well, why fearing normal pullbacks? And then from there, we could, try to think through, okay, well, I don't wanna give back too much profits. That might be it, right? Uh, Not give back profits. Give back profits. Not knowing if it's, going to turn into a worse pullback. Not knowing if it will get worse, right? Let's see. Yeah, Mark says, was afraid of giving back unrealized gains. Since began to ask, could this be a spot to add to a position instead? Now that's solid there, right? Like that's like taking the fear uh, and turning it on its head. It's taking something that was being framed in a negative way and beginning to frame it into a positive way. I absolutely love that kind of response. And you know what? I want to give you a trade that actually did that in a big way. So the trade that did that most recently, the probably the biggest leader in the market right now is Net. Right. So Net was running quite a bit, right? Like so, it started back here, it broke out of this first stage base. If everybody could see it, maybe I'll zoom in a bit more. So it broke out down here and it ran 57% in about 2 months. 2 months, maybe a little bit more than 2 months, maybe 3 months. Right, so it ran up, it consolidated a little bit around its 21-day exponential moving average. That purple line continued to move up and grind its way higher, and then bam, got slammed below the 50-day moving average on heavy volume on that day, and it closed at the low of the day. Right, so from this day here, in 4 days, it gave back about 16.5%. Right? But to Mark's point, could this be a spot to add? Right? So if we like if we're in this and we're seeing our position tank 15% in a day, uh, that could be kind of difficult, right? But what if we start with a question of no. Where might we want to add, right? Well, what if we came up with multiple scenarios ahead of time, like this? Well, what are we going to do if price rockets up, or what are we going to do if price rockets down? And what are we going to do if price rockets down and closes near its low? Thinking that way might have gotten us to, oh, well, where is major support? And then you might have seen that, oh, well, you know what? That orange line there has been creeping up and it's actually right there, right on it. That's the 100 EMA, by the way, exponential moving average. And then you might look to the left and then see that, oh, wow, you know what? This is actually right in line with prior resistance. And we know that prior resistance can sometimes turn into support, right? Like it's kind of like when you are walking up a flight of stairs, and then what was a ceiling now becomes your floor. That's could be, well, what happened right here. Now, in the vast majority of instances, uh, if a stock does this, you might say, "Okay, cut it and move on." But it in this case, it might have been a special case because net has been a market leader. It has been a true market leader, if you're familiar with that term. And when you come back out here, and now let's take a look at a weekly chart, you could see that it's been running for a long time, right? Like from it was one of the first ones out last year during the pandemic, and even though, like, just taking it from up here, it's run how much? 800% up to now, and over to here, it ran over 400%. That's in about a year and a half. It's a true market leader. So when you start to see something like that, you might say, you know what? When it is pulling back in that way and it's uh, not going to just kick it off the radar, but you start to see how it's turning around over here. Maybe you take a little bite, right? Like you don't have to load up on it right there, but maybe, just maybe you add just a little bit. You start to see how it does, or maybe you're taking a little bit more of a position, or maybe a half size position. Start to see how it does, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you're up 60, 70% in, well, what is that, since October, in about a month. Kind of crazy how this stuff can work out. But yes, it all starts with the type of question that Mark here is asking himself. Could this be a spot to add to a position and not getting ready to puke up shares? Great perspective. So, and how does that happen? It starts by treating your fears as friends. What can you learn from your fears? Now, if there's anybody else that has that would like to share, and thank you so much for Mark for giving that to us. If there's anybody else that would like to share, please go ahead and type into the chat. Um, let's see. Uh, just reading through some notes quickly. Um, Yeah. Well, when it comes to any kind of trading fears, if you're treating them as friends, if you're starting with why, you're sitting down with those fears, you're starting to gain a better understanding of those fears, and it's you're starting to learn too. In what ways are they trying to help you? Right? Like, so, and right there, that's opening yourself up, right? Like, this isn't an adversary. This is a friend that is well intentioned and is trying to help you somehow. Whether, this friend is ultimately going to help you get to your goal or not, like that can be debated, but the fear is well intentioned. So that's why it pays for you to, mm, and since we're talking about trading, pays quite literally to sit down with this fear and approach it as a friend and start to ask yourself, well, what is this fear trying to help me with? What's it trying to help me with? What is it? In what ways is it trying to help me? Um, what happens if I continue to hold on to this fear, right? And then as you're getting down the road too, and this is a lot of what I talk about in the book. back there, the Mara Mind Shift Guide. If you haven't already grabbed a copy of that, go ahead and grab a copy. It's helping out thousands of people. It's on Amazon. You can go get it right now. But the when you start to think through the question why, uh, why is this fear here? Why is it present? In what ways is it trying to help me, or in what ways did it help me in the past? Then you could start to gain a better and a deeper understanding of this fear. And as you gain a deeper understanding of it, you'll be in a better position to come to some kind of a resolution moving forward. Maybe you're able to completely let the fear go. Maybe you're able to learn something like Mark did, and you end up flipping the it on its head, where instead of being a weakness where you're going to exit a position, you are now looking at a trade far more objectively, and you're able to add where before you were uh, just losing on a trade. So um, this is really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to uh, trading and trading fears and trading psychology in general. We could go a lot deeper, but for right now, I'd like to open up the floor. If you guys have any questions about really anything that we've spoken about, anything in trading related, now's the time. Go ahead, type it into the chat right now. I'll give you guys a moment to do so. Something else too, that's, I would say, a fear of like a fear of losing money, right? Like, let's talk about that fear. That's a popular one. So, for example, I'll use a very personal example. Upstart. Upstart was a trade that I feel like I should have managed better, right? Like, so I'm still in this trade. You could see a bunch of markups. Actually, well, why don't I take that out so that way you could kind of see the chart a bit better. So I initially bought Upstart as it was breaking out of this here, and I wrote it up, and I should have been selling a bit more up here. And there were 2 things that I mishandled here. Number 1, I feel I should have been selling a little bit more up here because it had just hit major psychological number, 400, right? So that should have been a sell signal, but I was seeing it as a true market leader, so was planning to hold. So I had 2 scale outs in it, and that was enough at the time. But part of what the way that I mishandled it was that keeping my stops pretty low in here, right? So I had a stop down here, right? The original stop. So I let all that profit, right? So I had to scale out. So I'm still profitable in the position. But I had to scale out somewhere around here, and then again like up here, and then from 400 to let that correct 23% on the entire position. That's a bit much. That's a bit much for me, and that's why I was telling myself, you know what, you probably should have been scaling out of some. And some of that could be a fear of missing out, or a fear of losing profits, right? But having reconciled a little bit with that fear, when you look back, right, like on this day, when it starts to come back in here, where you look to the left, what's it testing? Right? It's testing the breakout area from back here. If you look on a higher time frame, right? So we'll zoom out to a weekly. So I'll keep the cursor over here and just keep keep your eyeballs over here, right? So if it's pulling back over here on that low, what do you see over there, right? It's that low right there. That's the 10-week line. So it's getting support right at the 10-week line. This is a major leader in the market. So if you approach it from a bullish standpoint, if you're looking at it as a potential true market leader, it makes it easier to see a pullback as a potential opportunity to buy or buy more versus looking at like, oh my God, I was up. Let me draw this again. I was up 27%, and now the remainder of the position is back to break even. Oh my God, I'm such a doofus, right? Like that. If you could switch that type of thinking to, hey, this is an opportunity, then it's going to dramatically help your trading. So anyhow, that is about all the time that we have for today. So, for everybody that's here, that's watching this live, I want to say thanks again for watching. Go ahead, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And you know what? The best way to find out about these live streams, I put a description. I put a link in the description wherever you're watching this, or if you're watching it on YouTube, that's probably the best way. The YouTube and Share Vision. Go to either one of those, and you'll see in the description there's a link to get onto an email list. That's the best way to find out when these are happening, what the topics are, and to get the agenda for them, and a bit more too. So go sign up for those. And that is about it for today. I want to say thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow, well, what are we talking about tomorrow? Tomorrow, we are going to be talking about nailing down profits. Great topic, especially in this kind of market environment. I'll see you there. Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below and become a part of the Marrow Wealth community. And make sure that you check out some of the other videos on the channel. They're exactly what you need to see. And leave a comment down below. I read all of them. Leave a comment.